Oh, we didn't even get. Oh, you know what? Dang, guys, I'm sorry. I took out the pre video because I was doing some testing earlier. I didn't put it back on, so I'm sitting there cleaning something up, waiting for the sound to go on. And you know what, Michelle? It has been a weird day for technology here for me, and for both of us. Hopefully, we'll make it. We'll make it through this show. Dang, I really wanted to show that intro video, but we won't do it today. So let me go ahead and clean that out. I'm going to be introducing you here shortly to Michelle. She is a very dynamic person, has gone through a lot in her life. Currently, she lives in Canada. She has a number of different things going on that are based on her building off of the life that she came through with with some serious mental issues, physical issues, surgeries. This is the path that she took. Let's say that has led her to this point where she's now emboldening and empowering women to bring that, to kind of get your badass on, to, take anxieties and difficulties and make them your bitch. I love saying that. And I'm allowed to, because they're in your thing there, Michelle. So Ms. DJ, she's a teacher, a lot of background in the discussion we're having today. Hey, appreciate you guys popping on. You could have come on regular time, because I didn't even have the pre-show on. I know you guys have probably seen that hundreds of times, but I gotta fix that. Dang. So back to Michelle. She is a very dynamic personality. Love your hat, by the way. You guys know two things, and we only got one out of the two this time. I love names. And I'm not even going to try yours. I'm not going to. I am going to try it, but I'll let you go first so I can have another shot at it. And she's Indian, but she was born in Canada, so she doesn't have the accent that I was really hoping to grab onto and have fun with, which is probably a good thing. So with that, I am going to bring on my new bestest friend in the world. How about you guys meet Ms. DJ? How you doing?
Hello. Oh my gosh, you had me like laughing back here. Thanks for that introduction. I would really like to hear you try my last name.
Oh, you son of a gun. Hold on. Dosanjh-Johal.
Oh,
Dosanjh-Johal.
well, you butchered the first part, but the last part was pretty good. So I'll give you
okay, what did I do? Wait, Dajan. No, okay, forget it. Well, how do you say it? I deserve that. I deserve it. I get it. I totally get it.
Oh my gosh. Michelle Dosanjh-Johal. But the kids just call me Miss DJ, and there's a reason. This is the reason why I allow my students to call me Miss DJ.
Yeah, I consider that a very kind and intelligent act on your part. So one of the things we didn't get sorry, this is my fault, guys. We were on. She was waiting for me. We were just chit chatting, going through some stuff. Had some sound issues we were messing around with, and then we started going through some of the things that we get set up for. That's why that 7 minutes before, and so we were going through the sound things. I'm looking, okay, we still got like 3-ish, 4 minutes. Let me go through some things. I went through some things, and then we started talking some more. And then I looked down and go, oh my God, it's 10 minutes after you. They're going to get pissed at me. So here we are. We're back. And one of the things I wasn't able to get to, it's a crazy day with the move and everything else going on. We're trying to pull it together. I promised you I'd get focused, and here we go. This is me focused, by the way. I don't want to give you too much anticipation or anything. So
this is as good as it gets. Got it.
Yeah, this is focused. ADHD, a lot of stuff you talk about attracted me to your message.
Mm-hmm.
And when you messaged, and we went back and forth, it was like, oh, come on, let's do this right now.
Mm-hmm.
And because it's for me, it's multiple things, and I'll get to the thing I was going to ask you in a second. I told you this is focused. The thrill, one of the real thrills of doing this show is one, meeting a bunch of people, having awesome guests on that bring up information. But as that's going along, and here we already got our messages coming in. Oh, these guys, I keep telling them, get me on your show. I don't have your contact information, guys. But anyway, we all benefit from you,
Mm-hmm.
but I benefit like every day because I've become such a much better person. I went through a series of tragedies. You and I'll compare some notes along the story.
Right.
But yeah, but now every day, at least an hour. By the way, do you have a hard stop? Are you okay on time?
I should be okay.
Okay, only because the surprise we've got 45 people already.
I do have an autistic boy and some elders in the house that might walk in afternoon, but
that's fine.
I guess we'll just go with the flow.
That's what live is all about. Live happens in life.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, absolutely. But one thing I didn't get to with you is you're on this journey, and we do a lot of work in autism and the scale, the spectrum, I should say.
Mm-hmm.
As a matter of fact, we've had a couple of people on that had their own podcasts about autism. Great show, man. There's just a lot of eye-opening stuff about what you're going to be talking about. I already know that.
Right.
But my point being is that I get to be able to be helped by listening, by being involved in this conversation, literally every day, sometimes twice in a day. So I'm really excited about that moving forward. But let's get into how you got to your journey, and you already started to mention some of it. Your family, you're in your family, you have current things that you work with and work through, which is exciting and challenging. But also your background's pretty heavy. So why don't you start back there? You don't have to go back to birth if you don't want to, but you're more than welcome to. And then, what are the things that got you on the path that you're on the journey now?
Yeah, absolutely.
On the journey that you are on now.
Yeah,
I'm going to back out. I'm going to give you the screen. I'm going to read some. Oh my goodness, Ronaldo's back. No kidding. I'm going to have a chat with her. She's a friend of the show, very much so. So anyway, I'm getting off here. You please clean up this show. Please make it a little more professional. Please help me and
I'll do my best.
So we don't lose. Yeah, trust me. Make it good. I'll see you in a second.
All right. So this is kind of strange because I feel like I'm talking to myself because I can't see you anymore, Rod. But so my story.
What?
Oh, there you go.
You can't chew and walk and chew bubble gum. You need to look at me to talk. Come on, look at our guests. Look at our guests.
I'll just pretend. I'll pretend I'm autistic for a moment, and I don't need anyone to look at while I'm having this.
All right, there you go. Yeah, there. Work with that. Work on. She's an actress too. You see that? You see that jumping right into role play there?
Yeah. So my story actually revolves around my children. And I've also been a special needs teacher, and I see a question here about how did your experience as a teacher shape your resilience work? And I'll get to that in a moment. But really, it revolves around some pretty extreme challenges that we've experienced. So my son was diagnosed with autism when he was being diagnosed at 3. And his autism is, it impacts him pretty hard. And then my daughter was diagnosed with high functioning autism at 9. By 11, my daughter was being diagnosed with a really rare health disorder. So it's called mosaic Turner. And what that means is that there is
That's the one.
Yeah.
That's the one right
Yeah.
there. I remember I said earlier what I was trying to remember what it was. Dig into this deep, because this is a whole new
Right.
thing that, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a very rare disorder. So not a lot of people have heard of it, but it's basically Turner syndrome, and mosaic means she got some of those pieces, and it was one of her as her X chromosomes were forming, and it's not a genetic disorder in that she didn't inherit it. It was just some kind of fluke of the genes,
Okay.
and some of her
at birth, kind of just something there. Something, a fluke happened. Okay,
yeah,
gotcha.
a fluke happened as she was developing. And then because of that, some of her X chromosomes are only X and not XX. And what that resulted in was a whole slew of very extreme health challenges. So God bless the doctor who figured it out, because if he hadn't figured it out, she had a heart condition that would have been fatal. Right?
It was the Canadian. I just heard the.
Oh, you heard the Canadian.
I heard it.
Are you making me laugh about this stuff? I'm talking about serious things, Rod. Come on.
I know. I am trying my best. I'm trying, but I told you I can't stop that. Go on. Your doctor really pulled it out, huh?
Yeah, I'm very grateful, because he just was. Gosh, you keep having me laugh here. So he was very serious. My serious teacher face. He just became suspicious on something completely different. We had gone in for something. I can't even remember what my husband had taken her in for. And it ended up, he did this blood test, comes back positive. And if he hadn't found that, it could have been fatal, because she had a pretty serious heart condition. So at 15, and I'm going to try to keep it short, because I don't want to go on and on and on about this stuff. But so at 15, she ended up having full-on open heart surgery to correct the problem. At 11, my son.
Wait. To correct the problem? So the XX is still not there, but the disease what that was causing to the heart is what was repairable was repaired.
Yeah, so they had to basically repair part of the stem of her aorta, or aortic valve. It could have burst, right? Yeah, I don't have all the medical technical terminology, nor do I want to bore people with it. But she also ended up with a hormone condition. So she has to take estrogen patches and progesterone. She had to take growth hormones. But now I just laugh, because I'm actually perimenopausal now. And so I'm taking estrogen myself. So I laughed at her. I said, "Hey, Savin, it's like you're a perimenopausal woman. Let's just do our patch together," right?
That's right. So you guys have little patch parties?
Yes, twice a week we have our little patch party. Yeah, and then unfortunately the story doesn't stop there. Then she ended up at 17, she ended up with irritable bowel disease. And and I think that was also caused by Turner. I think it's all related, but COVID was the onset of that, because she had COVID, and then that triggered her IBD.
Oh, yeah.
And then she ended up 3 months out of high school for her grade 12 year, and she ended up, blood transfusions, and I believe that's what caused her mental health issues. But I'm going to backtrack a little bit. It was when my daughter was 4 weeks into recovery for open heart surgery, that my son's mental health took a turn. And we already knew something was not quite right. So he was autistic, had an intellectual disability, and we knew something else was not right. But it became extreme. And he's 11 years old, and he is struggling with this extreme depression now. And bolting out of the house, like we have to lock the front door now. So he would bolt out of the house into traffic, flop onto the ground, and tried to smash his head in the pavement. Like, yeah, it was pretty extreme stuff. So
just out of nowhere, he would just this
just out of nowhere.
this panic, like a panic, fight or flight kind of thing would happen, and boom.
Yeah, and then just crying and crying. So this a depression at 11 years old, just coming out of nowhere. And then unfortunately with my daughter, and I do believe the IBD has something to do with this, because they're now finding a lot of research that links gut health with mental health. And we didn't know what was going on with my daughter. It was December 23rd.
Hearing about that. I'm starting to hear about that, that gut health, and your mental is actually being controlled a lot more than you think.
Yeah.
That's where you're going with the gut and the heart even?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Absolutely.
Go ahead. I'm hearing more about this.
Yeah. And so because she didn't have any kind of gut health left, she was literally bleeding from the inside out. And unfortunately, it led to an extreme mental health crisis. Woke up one day, and I swear to God, she just wasn't my daughter anymore. So I'm just going to preface this so that people understand. This was a gentle, yes, high-functioning autistic, but very articulate and bright A and B student. And she woke up and she was someone else. So one moment she would be, and this is really recent. This just happened December 23rd, 2023. So this was quite recent. Still processing everything, and it's taken a year for recovery for this one. Yeah. So one moment she would be raging and throwing things. And like I said, this is a kid who was very gentle beforehand. She was gentle, super compassionate and kind. And I'd never seen her get angry, let alone throwing things and raging like that, It was scary.
And again, this is at 11 years old. So the hormones.
Sorry, she's now 11 is when she was diagnosed. And she is now 17 at this point.
Oh, so she's also got there's all sorts of stuff going on now. And if this thing's triggering off, it's girls at that age are, going through a tough time as it is. And that's just what would you call it? An igniter of. So she's going through some real hell.
Yeah. So it ended up, when we first took her in, the doctor thought she had a brain infection. And so I didn't know if she was going to live or die, honestly. Wow. It was the scariest thing we've ever gone through in our lives. And they thought she was delirious. They did all these tests, and that's because she's already immunocompromised. And so they thought that she had somehow developed something called NMDA, which is similar to The Girl on Fire, that movie. But it ended up being, a few months later, ruled as psychosis. So I now have 2 kids who have autism, one who also has health challenges, and then I have another who both have serious mental health issues. Yeah. And so that is what led to my resilience work. As for being a teacher, I did a lot of social and emotional learning, and I have taught special needs. I'm just
let me just it sounds like, just to dig a little deeper, just add a little bit of color in here. Their kids are different ages, and was it about the same time that the mental health issues started?
No, it was a very different timing. Yeah, we didn't expect it for my daughter. So my daughter was.
Do you know why? Is there any like, is that something we're going towards, or is this kind of like,
no,
that's what caused you to get into your work and trying to understand that? But is that common with people on the spectrum to also go into depression?
Okay, that's a really good question, actually, because that's the part of autism that people don't seem to understand, is that it's not just autism, right? The autism on its own isn't always problematic. It's just a matter of accepting the kid for having brain differences, right? So that's the autism. The autism is like the wiring of the brain is different.
Right.
What people don't understand is it often comes with comorbidities of some sort of mental health. So, which means that autism often isn't just autism alone. Unfortunately for my daughter, it also came with health pieces, right? Some serious health pieces, but, and most, I'm guessing more people on the spectrum might deal with ADHD, or they might deal with anxiety, they might deal with depression, but my kids went through extreme stuff. So my son's actually bipolar, and my daughter went through psychosis. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you've had some real experience leading up to what obviously now you're going on to about your journey, where the mission you're on. I mean, talk about personal. My God, that's so. Please continue on, and we'll get into some of these questions here shortly enough. But that's good for you for hanging out and being strong and smiling and wearing cool hats, by the way.
Why, thank you. Yeah, right. Especially the hat part, right?
I had to take mine off because I was being overshown. Here, I'll put it back on.
There you go. Join me with your hat.
Got my name on it too.
Yes, wonderful, wonderful. Honestly,
right?
Rod, I'm not going to say that it was always easy, right? Like it was dark. There were some really, really dark times, but the thing that was my anchor was the love that I had for my kids. So I would just focus on how much I loved them, and I couldn't afford to break down, right? Because who was gonna take care of them? And so when I was going through my darkest moments, it was the love that I would focus on. And that's what I would say to anyone who's going through any kind of crisis, is find an anchor, whether that is love, whether that is hope, whether that is faith. I also tattooed hope onto my body when she had her open heart surgery.
Oh, wow.
And you can't ever give up on those things, right? Because if we give up on those things, we're done for. But I also, people would ask me all the time, how is it that I'm so resilient, right? And so I would tell them, oh, it's easy. I'm secretly a witch. But actually,
whoa, where did that come from? Whoa! I was like,
I'm just kidding.
I'm sitting there reading. You should have seen my reaction on my face. I was sitting there reading something.
I was just seeing if you were listening. I was just.
I was listening. I'm like, well, wait a minute. You got to start doing some tricks now. Where's your broom? You do have the black outfit, kind of that good-looking witch.
I do have a hat. Yeah,
you different do have the hat.
But actually, I started to examine, and I'm also I'm a huge nerd. And so I was constantly studying about mental health and doing all this coursework and whatnot. So many different courses, just some free stuff off Yale, UBC, what you name it. I also, as a teacher, I was really privileged that I got to teach social and emotional learning in the Surrey School District for a year. And so there was a lot of learning there. There was a lot of strategies, mindfulness, meditation, those kinds of things that I utilized myself. And so I started to examine everything.
Wait. So when you're teaching in your classes, the special needs kids, you get into meditation with them as well as part of it? Oh, that's so cool.
That's my passion. Yeah. So we don't really call it meditation because, some people might have an issue with that. We call it deep breathing, right? And social and emotional.
Why would people have a?
Well, there's just, we have all different kinds. You have all different kinds.
Okay.
Some people will associate meditation with like Eastern dogma, right? And
that's
like Buddhism or religion, and then they'd have an issue with it. So we just call it.
Okay. Right. Just stay out of the drama. Gotcha.
Yeah, exactly. And then what we'll do is we'll, talk about the science behind it, which I won't get into here because that's like I might bore some people, and I don't want to do that. But what I did was I examined all the different things I had been doing, and I came up with my own framework. Okay, so the framework is F.A.S.T. And so, is it okay if I get into that a little bit, Rod? So,
No,
no? Okay.
can't
Well, in that
can't talk
case,
about it.
I'm done.
Can't talk about nothing.
Okay,
You
I'm
can't.
done. I'm done
No,
with the
absolutely.
conversation.
Absolutely, please, and dig deep. You know
Yeah.
what the expertise that you have is obviously you've made what you enjoy and are passionate about your job.
Right.
So talk about your job. Absolutely, 100%. I told you, and guys, I got our contact information. And before I get back off, because there's actually quite a few. I'm getting behind here really bad, but on the comments and questions. But when you you were starting to get into what you're talking about now, and you were talking about grabbing onto something when you're going, have I'm sorry, an anchor. There you go. Having that anchor. How do you and can you blend that into what you're talking about now, as far as, if I'm having an issue, which I've had, I'm talking from experience. Now, the anchor I had was a person that helped me then find these things that you're talking about, a professional.
Yeah.
How would I, without knowing this, recognize how to grab on as an anchor? So can you build that in with what you're talking about here? And I'll go back to reading some questions here and listening, by the way. So test me if you want. I'm here. I'm not
I am testing you. Don't worry about it. So the anchor is really when we're going through a crisis, right? When we're going through a crisis, I feel like we need to be very gentle with ourselves, and it's just about putting one foot in front of the other. Okay, I kind of have a metaphor for it. It's like we're in a boat that is leaking, and all we can do at that time is stay afloat, right?
I've heard that so much. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, but it really feels like that. When you're in a crisis, that's not the time to be meditating necessarily and doing all these things and putting all this pressure on yourself. You just need to breathe. You just need to get through that shit. And so that's what I mean. Oh, sorry, I'm swearing now. But that's what I mean about finding an anchor. You just have to find something.
Don't fucking use another cuss word on our show. Would you please?
So the name of my course is Make Stress Your Bitch.
I was waiting for that one. I wanted to yell that out first, but you got it. You nailed it. Yeah, it's a great
because
name.
When someone tells me not to do something, then I generally rebel and tend to do it. So so that's and I'm getting so off. But that's the anchor part. The anchor part is when you're going in the middle of the crisis. Just be gentle with yourself. Breathe. Find something to hold on to, right? Whether that be love for someone, whether that be hope. I mean, love has been a saving grace in the most extreme situations, like concentration camps. People just thought about the love that they had for their spouse or their children, and they made it through that. So those things are not small. But my framework is F.A.S.T. So F was to feel. We cannot pretend like those feelings are not there, right? It's so important, and research shows this, that we need to process our feelings and feel our feelings. And I feel also that men have a hard time with this, right? But what I have learned is that when we are vulnerable and when we process our emotions, that's not weakness, right? Society has given us the wrong message, saying that this is weakness, when in actuality, it is strength. Because we have to be courageous to be able to face our emotions, right? Especially that dark stuff. And then we need to be able to process it. Otherwise, it will become illness in your body. And research has shown this time and time again, that if we don't feel our feelings, you could become ill.
dig into that a little bit because it's so true. You send different chemicals, right, from
Mm-hmm.
out to your body depending on what's going on. That goes back
Mm-hmm.
to the fight and flight times,
Yeah,
right?
right. And it's an overload of cortisol, right?
There you
If you're
go.
not
Yeah.
processing your emotions, you're not feeling your feelings. Did you know that tears actually carry cortisol, right? So those of you who are not sure what cortisol it is, it's your body's stress hormone, and it
Wow.
releases it. Because when we have an overload
Wow.
of cortisol, that's what's going to create illness in our body, right? So the first part of the program is to feel, and I could go on and on about some of the research, but again, I don't want to bore people. Yeah, you want to hear some of the research?
Yeah, no. I'm just saying, we are again, we're not in a research class about that F and that, we're not in, but we also like to get a little bit of background. So just, touching over a couple of things, the little support to that is always really nice flavor.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, again, I watch a lot of doctors and whatnot, and there's Dr. Gabor Mate. He talks about how there was a research study done with women in bad marriages. Okay. The
Okay.
woman who failed to simply express the fact that they were miserable, right? The ones who did not express that, they died sooner than the ones who expressed their feelings.
Okay. Because
Yeah.
they held it in.
So cortisol is a killer, and it will make you sick.
Wow.
The second part of my framework is A and S, which is to accept and surrender to the things that you cannot change. So I could sit here and I could be miserable, or I could be here and I can like laugh with you still, right? And still enjoy my life. But if I didn't accept the fact that my kids have some pretty fucking extreme, challenges in their life, if I didn't accept that, then I would be stuck in the resistance, right? So if we don't accept and surrender to the challenges that are already there, which I cannot change anyway, right? They already have this mental health stuff. They already have autism. She already has Turner syndrome to deal with. That's here. If I was just here like, but I wish it wasn't so, I wish it wasn't so, I would be wasting all my energy in the resistance. And that's what causes the suffering.
So
if you
true.
can accept some pretty extreme things, then you're going to have the energy to focus on what you can do. And what I can do is help my kids, and we're getting there. I'm helping them to get to the healthiest, happiest place that they can. And the other part of this is it is okay to take medication if you have a neurochemical imbalance. Okay? The stuff that I'm talking about for my framework, it can work for people, for sure. But it's not going to cure mental illness, right? So I really detest when spiritual communities especially will make people feel ashamed of having to take medication. Are you going to shame people if they need to take insulin for diabetes?
It's so crazy how that pendulum goes this. Now it's starting to come back again. It's because you're hearing it, but because people are actually saying we need doctors still because there's this like weird flex.
Yeah.
Holistic means whole. That means everything, right?
Right.
And that's kind of what you're talking about is a whole thing.
Yes.
And people get all weirded out on that, maybe because of the past or whatever.
Right.
But we gotta get. That's why we need this.
Right.
We need this conversation
Yes.
to get that cleaned up.
Everybody has diverse experiences, right? So if you do not have a serious mental illness, then sure, you can meditate like me. Sure, you could do all of these things that I'm talking about and feel fine. But we cannot shame people who need medication to feel better. Some people, we don't know what they're going through. And I'm telling you, it was the scariest thing to see my kid, who is the sweetest, gentlest, kindest kid. Suddenly, she wasn't even here anymore. I don't even know who that person was, but that was not my daughter. And part of my mission is to help people understand that, right? And to see the humanity behind the illness. She is not her illness. My son is not his illness, right? They're humans. They're the person behind the illness that I'm trying to get back through the right medications and I take them out for nature. I'm trying to focus on gut health as well. All of that supplementary, but they still need medication. I'm not taking a chance. If my daughter wasn't taking her medication, she had become suicidal. She wouldn't be here today, right?
Yeah.
So that's
Yep.
part of the hardest thing I had to accept was her psychosis, right? So we were third time back to the emergency room last year. And this time she had become suicidal. She was trying to run away from the hospital. They had to put her in restraints. And somehow she would become Houdini. And she would like break free from the restraints. So it was like, my gentle kid is Houdini all of a sudden, breaking free of restraints. I'm like, what is going on? But they had to put her in this room, right? So it was like a prison cell. It was like cold concrete walls, steel toilet, and just a little mattress on the ground. And there came a moment where I had to accept that. And luckily, they would leave the door open if I was there, so I didn't leave the room. And she was sleeping there on the mattress, and I just sat there. And I had this moment where I've had a few conversations with God, and I was having this conversation with God, and I just, at that moment, I just surrendered it all. I was like, okay. Oh, I forgot to mention her IBD was also acting up because they had taken her off the medication thinking she had had a brain infection at that time. So it was like bad, right? And I thought I could lose her. But I sat there, I said, okay, well, I guess this is what you've given me. I don't have a choice. I have to accept this. And I'm telling you, I sat there and I had actually blocked this out of my mind for a while. And it came back to me recently. I sat there and I meditated. And then there was a moment of peace, and which is absolutely insane. How could you be going through like the worst thing in your life and have a moment of peace, right? So the peace came in the surrender and the acceptance of the things that I couldn't change. That doesn't mean I was giving up. That means I was reserving my energy for what I can change, right? There's a difference.
Absolutely. Yeah. Why not be able to put your full energy into the right things, and instead of what you're talking about here?
Mm-hmm.
So many times we spin off so much energy on things that we know, pretty quick if you cannot change something. It's like you're burning that up, and you can't do it, but for some reason you keep getting pulled to do that. You need to redirect and get your focus correct. I don't think two things. I don't think we got onto the T yet.
Yes.
And then I want to also we've kind of gone past this, but I do want to go back to the schools thing, because I see teacher all over you, and it's awesome. And I want to go back to that first question and then kind of get into some of these, because we've got a lot to go here. But
it's all good. Yeah, let's do it.
What's T? Talk T to me.
So T would be to transform. Mindset is powerful, right? You cannot sit there and make yourself into a victim. But, so, I mean, Sarah Almadani and David Sharma, they talk about how, David Wallace and Robin Sharma, they talk about how the mind is your, it could be either your, I'm forgetting my thought now. It could be your detriment, or it could be, if you're going to allow, exactly. They talk about how mindset is powerful and it's everything, right? If you allow your mind to run these negative narratives, then it's going to be the end of you. Exactly.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it's funny. We talk about things like this, and that literally it's to the point of what you're saying. It's to the point where every single person on earth lives a completely different life. I'm standing right next to you, or we're here communicating. we're not seeing the same thing exactly the same way because of the way we interpret things, right?
Absolutely, perspective.
Exactly what you're
Yeah.
saying right
Yeah.
there, and that pulls us. You control your mind,
Hmm. Yeah,
and then it controls your life. I mean,
absolutely.
that's how it all works right there. And you
Absolutely.
can drive yourself. And you know what? It's funny you said that because remember I told you earlier that this show has changed me.
Mhm.
I'm still a bit of a, no, I'm not a dick anymore. I don't think I'm at all. I think honestly, I can say that people would say about me now that I don't think there's anybody out there that would call me a dick. Before that wasn't such a limited
Oh my gosh,
supply.
that's so
That
funny.
was not such a limited supply before, and I lived behind a mask my whole life. I was embarrassed, growing up with all those things that you know about, and that is why you're on the journey. The mental illness and not feeling good as a kid and all that stuff. You live behind something, and then you're not authentic. So I became, not a horror. Well, not a great guy throughout my life. Just that kind of thing, and not thinking about things and others the way I should. But now it's different,
Mm.
and I can honestly say nobody. Maybe if they knew, maybe if they think about things in the past, they'd still think I'm a dick. But now nobody. I don't know anybody who would call me a dick today. So
I
that's
am
a good and that's
I'm
here.
so happy for you.
I just got
So
very
so
happy
happy
for
that
myself. I
few people call
no,
you a dick anymore.
exactly. It's even think it. They wouldn't say it to my face probably, but no, you're the one. You just. Sorry, I cannot resist this one because it's just going too well. It's just too much fun as I beat my mic here. But no, I think you are the awesome one because you made me think. I've been living with that happiness for I don't know what a year now, just kind of enjoying it. But now this is the first time I thought about it. I don't think I've ever thought. I don't think there's a person on earth that knows me today that would call me a dick. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for that.
Congratulations.
That is a good day. That is a good day. So I
Yeah.
know I cut you off and everything,
No, but
but
I know we're joking, but transformation is exactly what I'm talking about, right? And
100%.
mindset is a powerful tool for transformation.
Yeah, it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Mindset is everything, right? I mean,
Mhm.
like I said, you don't want to get stuck in victim mentality, right? You want to be able to process your
I've
feelings,
been
you
there.
want to be able to feel your feelings, but you don't want to get stuck there in victim mentality. You need to move
Mhm.
beyond, right?
Yep.
And it's I use the metaphor of like a butterfly, right? Too many people they're so stuck in their cocoon in their safe place that they don't want to transform and become something more evolved, right? But I mean, we joke, but congratulations. It
Right.
sounds like you've done a lot of work, and I feel like we can
Exactly.
all of us can always do a lot of work, and it's self-love can be transformational, right? And when you start to learn to come from a
Yeah.
place where you like that's one of the things I've learned, and some of my students in my adult course have learned, and I was almost in tears because we cannot, it's not actually selfish. People think it's selfish, and that's what I used to think. What I learned is that if I don't take care of myself and I don't come from a place where I am whole, then I am not that good for my kids.
Yeah.
I need to be coming from, and when I'm healed, and if you think about how powerful this is, if we all did the work to heal ourselves, we would actually have a healed world. And you'd have people coming
Yes.
from a more powerful place. So that is not selfish. That is
No.
not selfish. That's the
Well,
opposite.
and also you only know what you know.
Yeah,
If you don't love yourself, how can you teach somebody else love?
that's
I
very
mean, you
true.
only
Yeah,
know what you know.
yeah, hmm,
It's so unselfish, and I
yeah,
know what you're saying that it
yeah,
sounds selfish, but you're
yeah.
right, man.
So
How does
mindset is transformation, and self love to me is pouring yourself into the things that make you feel whole, and that fuel your passion. And so for me, it was poetry. And I see a question here: what inspired the title, The Warrior Thing? So that's I don't know if you could see it, my poetry.
Hold on. I'll make it all good. I'm magical.
Woohoo!
Now push it up towards
Oh, okay. Ah. Can you see it?
My Warrior Sings. Gotcha.
Warrior
You got a
Sings.
little reflection there. If you turned it a little bit, you get rid of the reflection.
That's okay. I think people have seen enough of the book.
We got it. We're gonna run it in and out. Usually people like put it on the back shelf. Just
I know.
it's there.
I'm very.
Wow, yeah. Oh, you mean this? Yeah.
I am so bad at this. Honestly, I've been a teacher for 25 years. I am so bad at self.
Talk about being a teacher, man. Talk about being a teacher. So that was one of the earlier questions. How did that prepare you? Because it did prepare you. It's given you. So you do a lot of studying. You've done and do a lot of studying. You live it, and you teach children how to manage. So there's this whole life going on around this.
Right.
So obviously, all of this has an effect. But the actual question, boy, I'm getting.
What was
people
the actual
are calling
question?
me about you. People are calling. Yeah. So the actual question is, how did your experience as a teacher shape your resilience?
Yeah, right.
Work,
And
which I think is a really good. It kind of shapes it. How the delivery, right? Kind of stuff, right?
I do think I spoke a little bit to this piece, but
You did. You did. We talked about being a teacher, but I don't know how much we really, as far as how that shaped, because that's where you learned. Like you have lesson plans and stuff because you have lessons here, that we haven't talked about. Well, we
talked about the framework a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so basically, for 25 years, I have taught everything from elementary school to high school English, hence, poetry, another passion of mine.
I love poetry.
By the way, which is how I transformed my cane. This was one of my tools. So transformation was part of the program. I just, I accessed my feelings and my emotions and transformed it into what I would say is art, right? And then my poetry book there's a question about the title. Maybe I can get back to later about The Warrior Sings. But your question was my teaching career. Yeah. So, and then I went I upgraded, did my post-bac in special ed and went into special education. And then I had a year there where I was fortunate enough to teach, like I was saying, social and emotional learning for the Surrey School District, which for me started to become the cornerstone of my resilience work. I didn't know it then that I was going to become a resilience trainer or a resilience coach. And I didn't know then the extreme challenges that I was going to have to face, and that these strategies would come in handy for me. But that's how being a teacher actually shaped my resilience work. I was starting to learn the strategies within the social and emotional learning piece.
Yeah. That what that does is polish everything up so it becomes more effective. Right? I mean, the better, that's why we like to do shows different ways. Different people have different styles that makes them comfortable, all that.
Yeah.
I was telling you back in the green room, you didn't eat any of those green M&Ms, did you?
I don't know. You can't tell me not to do something, because if you tell me not to do something, I'm a rebel. Come on. How do you not know
I'm going to get in so much trouble now. I am in so much trouble. My goodness. Yeah, I figured you'd do that. But we were talking about it, and that's that's. Now I forgot my freaking point. You got me stuck on the M&M. And now I'm thinking about how much trouble I'm going to get in about those M&Ms.
We were talking about social maturity, and teaching, and then resilience.
Yeah. So and the reason we like this show is because of the way it's presented, and I think you learn more if you're laughing and having a good time, or or that information is coming in a way that's proven, and teaching obviously creates that experience and proven, and you know what works and what because you've got a different audience, right? I mean, you've got to be able to connect in a way that's important and not traditional
Right.
necessarily.
That's true.
So that's a big help, right? I mean, that's a huge help. And then, like you were leading to earlier, which I want to know because the warrior sings. That's a big
So it's the
combination.
title of the first poem in here.
Poems.
And so it's basically talking about how, well, maybe I should read it.
Mm-hmm.
Can I read it? Yeah. Okay.
100%.
So the most beautiful song echoed in the wintry halls. Yeah.
I was just gonna say before you get started, I'm a poet. That's how I got started. That's my healing too.
Okay.
So I am a very big fan of what you're doing right now. Go ahead.
Amazing.
A big fan. I've got like thousands of poems. I've got thousands of poems.
Yeah, I might have thousands now too.
No, it's addicting. I know.
Yeah, I started on. I'm going to preface it actually with a story about where my poetry started. So I used to write as a child, right, all the time, and so what often happens is you become an adult and you forget the things that fuel you and fuel your passion and make you happy. And so I was pouring all my energy into my kids, and as you can hear, they were going through all these challenges. And it was when my daughter had her open heart surgery, and then my son's bipolar depression showed up for the first time, that the counselor told me. So this was 2020 or 2021, and the counselor told me I needed to do something for myself again. And so I just started. I made no excuses at this point, because I could have made excuses. I don't have time. So instead, with my morning coffee, I would just start scribbling, right? And next thing you know, I had a whole page on Instagram, Mindful Warrior's Way, dedicated to a lot of my poetry. And the next thing you know, I actually was able to publish a book, which was a childhood dream of mine. So there's no excuses. You could be going through the shittiest times, but you could still focus on yourself somehow, and you can still, find a way to make your dreams come true. So the title, The Warrior Sings, is inspired by this poem, and is inspired by my experiences. So the most beautiful song echoed in the wintry halls of the prison, calling attention to the angel in the cold cell. His wings chained and bleeding. "You fool," said the prison guard. "You are cold and decrepit and a fraction of your former self. Your wings are chained and bleeding. Why do you sing?" The angel merely smiled and said, "Because in love I rise." So he sang once again, and the tune echoed through the wintry hilltops and barren land where hope had been lost. And Nomad heard it and came to the cell window. He saw the chained angel and said, "Fool, you are worse off than me. Why do you sing?" "Because, my darling, in love I rise." Days passed and the angel continued to sing, and one day the prison guard brought his little girl and told her to stay put. Of course, this little girl, she seldom did as she was told. So she stole a set of keys and went exploring. When she heard the most glorious of songs, she followed the song to the cell with the angel. She opened the cell and was overwhelmed with joy and love. She kissed the angel on the forehead, unlocked his chains, and said, "I love you." And the angel smiled and rose. So that is why the warrior sings, because they know the secret that love can be delivered.
Do you do voice work at all?
No. Why, are you going to pay me for a job? I'll do it.
Let's talk in the green room after the show, because I'm putting a thing together that they know about, but I have a poetry channel. I don't read I write what I believe very good poetry, which, by the way, that was very good poetry.
Thank you.
But you know what was interesting about your voice in there? Your voice literally changed in a character switch.
Yeah.
When you switched from the narrator, which what would you call that? First person, I think, and then you switched into the girl as far as that poem, your voice changed and became, and you did that earlier in the show. That's why I picked up on it really fast. Yeah, you've got this very interesting little, a little bit more girlish speak. You ought to think about that as something you could add to your talents, because I bet you that's useful. I'm not an expert,
I used to
but
do
I am
a little bit of
hiring.
acting, which was a lot of
Okay,
fun.
there you go.
Yeah, I did a little bit.
Okay.
I dabbled in it for a
I
few
dig
years,
that.
had a few commercials and things. Yeah, a little bit.
That makes sense. All right, so let's. I want to talk to you about that in the green room then.
For sure.
The next one I wanted to get to was this was what we just talked about.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Adam, for your question, and thank you guys very much, gals. Thank you very much for that comment and question. I read this earlier.
Oh, there's an
yes,
echo?
I know.
Yeah, so sorry.
Yeah. I wrote her down a little bit further. Yeah, I know there's an echo. We talked about it before, but can you share more about the challenges with mosaic Turner syndrome? That's actually the biggest one I wanted, because right away that was something, and we talked a lot about it. So is there anything you can add in there, you can fill in there by any chance?
Yeah, no, I think I talked about the key pieces where she ended up with that heart condition.
Correct.
So she had that open heart surgery. She ended up with hormone conditions. So she has to take estrogen, progesterone since childhood. And then she had to have growth hormones. And it could also possibly be the cause of her IBD. So multiple health challenges that resulted from
and
this.
then on top of that, when you're taking all those hormone stuff, doesn't that really, I mean, it's affecting your body, and all that together would be aggressive in its effect, I would imagine.
I have no idea. I just know that her body doesn't
create
any hormones, so she definitely is in need of it. Yeah.
That's great. Oh, so she's having to get hormones she does not get at all?
Yeah, her body wasn't producing it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see it. Wow, that's so Mac here. So powerful. Thank you both for the live. I really enjoy, and we're not done here. And again, you can go a little bit over an hour-ish, right?
Yes, my son is walking around, so I'm hoping he doesn't come in and interrupt. But
we'd love to meet him. If there's not, I've had wives. You know what happens. I mean, you're at home, right? You have a home office.
Yes.
Somebody, a secretary walked in once, and she was all embarrassed. And when she was leaving, I made her introduce herself. We talked for a little bit.
Love it.
And,
yeah.
It's part of the show. That's why dogs come in every once in a while. So if your son pops in, please.
I think he's got his shirt on backwards. That's not me.
He's got one on.
His dad, everyone. That was his dad.
Dads do that kind of stuff. It happens, man. So, Mac, thank you so much for it. Rob Thomas here. Michelle, how can parents manage chronic stress effectively? Great.
Yes. So take my course, Make Stress Your Bitch. So the framework I just talked about is all about stress reduction and reducing your cortisol and learning all of the different kinds of strategies. There's so much you can do. I do have some free resources as well. So I've got 7 simple stress hacks. So if anyone's interested.
Hey, by the way, speaking of that, I put your information up. I didn't know if you noticed that before.
Yes.
But we get everything correctly there. Is that where the stress hacks are and all that too?
So they could contact me and send me DM. I love connecting with people. I really love genuine connections. So Mindful Warriors Way. I also have Mothers of Mental Health on IG. Or you could simply email me. It's you know what? I'm gonna put it in the chat here. My email. It's Michelle Dosanjh, because it's a little bit hard probably to spell, at gmail.com. And so people can also. So I just put it up in our chat here, Rod. But michelledosanjh-Johal@gmail.com, and I can send some free resources. Are you there? Did I lose you?
Yeah, sorry. I was just no. I'm sorry. I was just trying to copy that. I was trying to get it over
Okay,
real
cool.
quick. But I put up in the meantime. This is another one of the friends of the show. What are your top 3 tips for building emotional resilience? And then I'll
So
pop off
it would
and
be the
copy that over.
framework, right? So to feel and to process your emotions without getting stuck there. To accept and surrender that which you cannot change, so you can focus your energy on what you can work on, and to transform through your mindset and gifts. It doesn't matter who you are, everyone has some kind of gift. It doesn't have to be poetry, it doesn't have to be art, right? Or it could be like dancing, it could be sports, it could be academia. Everyone has something, but you can use that to transform your stress, and find something that fuels you, the passion that fuels you, and focus
I
on.
appreciate that. I could hear in your voice extending the sentence, because I hadn't come
Are
back
you
on
hearing my
yet.
Canadian accent now?
I
Are
could
you excited?
I am very much excited, and I could see your acting experience, because you were extending the comment a little bit longer, because I wasn't popping on, so you wouldn't throw me under the bus for not showing up. But I did put up the your email. That's the one you wanted, right?
That's correct.
Whoop,
Yeah.
I took
I
it
think
off
we
right when I
answered
asked you
that
that.
one. Yeah.
Sorry, that's the one. Okay. Yeah, we just answered the other one. The what role does
Oh my gosh,
advocacy
so
play?
much. Thank you for this
Right.
question, Will. Advocacy,
Thank you,
I've
Will.
had to be a huge advocate for my kids. So, like I said, when we learn to accept and surrender things, then we can focus on things you can change. And I have had to advocate, like you wouldn't believe, for my son, just so that he could be in school full time, and which should be, you would think that it's a human right. But I had to advocate at high levels just to have him in school full time and get the right care for him in school. I had to advocate. So when my daughter was in that room, that prison-like room, it was not good for her. Was not good for me, right? And I felt like, okay, we're here for mental health, and we're in like a prison cell. I had to basically advocate and say, if you don't get my daughter out by tomorrow, I'm going to the media about the fact that this is her care right now. I had to advocate all along the way for all of the health and mental health. And I just feel like that's going to be the next step of my journey, is to be, right now I'm advocating for my kids. I'm getting them in a good place. And then the next step of my journey is I actually want to create a foundation for support and advocacy for mental health and special needs. And I want to start advocating at a higher level for all people. And I'm hoping to change some. I know I'm here in Canada, but there's still issues with healthcare. There's still hospitals that are just completely packed, and elders without rooms that are lined up along highways. There's mentally ill people on the streets. Like, if I'm in shock if I go to Hastings Street here in Vancouver. It's just all homeless people, and we know the statistics are 50 to 70% of those people, depending on where you're getting the statistics from, have mental illness. So they're not getting the care that they need, and I'm shocked, because, like, yes, there are great things about Canada and everyone gets access to healthcare, but then there's cracks in our system for this to be happening. And so that's going to be the next step in my journey, is to do even more advocacy. But yes, there's a lot of advocating involved.
What's your go-to method when stress feels uncontrollable?
That's great.
Yeah.
For
Thank
me,
you, Jared. Oh, and by the way, Will, thank you for your earlier question, and thank you, Jared. So go ahead.
Yeah, my go-to would be deep breathing. It immediately can rewire your neurology, and it can calm down. So what's happening in our brain when we're overly stressed is our amygdala, and that part of the brain is overacting, and it shuts down the prefrontal cortex, which is the rational brain. And what we need to do, and by taking deep breaths, and you can do this also with mindfulness, and nature is a great way to practice that. But by taking deep breaths for me and for anyone else, we actually calm that part of the brain, and we regain access to the prefrontal cortex. So for me, meditating or deep breathing.
What do you mean by nature is great to use for mindfulness?
Oh my
You mean
gosh.
connecting with nature,
How
grounding.
can you,
Take your no. I think I know. I just want to. I want to dig
no,
a
no,
little
that's
deeper.
what I was gonna say. I mean, how can we not go into nature and not be present, right?
Right.
We go into
Exactly.
nature, and it's so beautiful that we're immediately present.
Take your shoes off, walk in the grass, kind
Grounding.
of too.
And that's another yeah, actually Mother Nature has a lot of energy that reduces our cortisol, and again, there's research that is
There you
proving
go.
this now. Grounding, but when I say mindfulness,
Yes, that's
what
what
I
I was
mean
wondering.
is getting out of the thoughts in your head that are creating that stress, and actually just being present in the moment, right? And so when we're in nature, we automatically are present, we're automatically there with the beauty, and we are reducing our cortisol levels, because nature is a natural
It's just pulling it out. It's just like it's that energy that we kind of have frequency, because we're nature. We have frequency, and then nature has frequency, right? And you can literally feel people within a couple of feet, literally, because of the frequency. So are you saying then that when you're mindfulness, you're talking about nature pulling that off?
Well, there's two things that are happening,
or am
right?
I mixing something up here?
No. There's two different things happening. So when you're mindful, most of our stress is caused by the thoughts in our head, right? And the thoughts in our head are worries, whether we are worrying about the past or whether we're actually worrying about future things. It's the thoughts creating the anxiety, it's the thoughts creating the stress. But when we're mindful, we're forced to be in the present moment. And in the present moment, the worries aren't there, right? So it's reducing the stress, because you're no longer in that, because the mind will go, "Whoa," and you need to get out of that as much as possible to ground yourself. And the second part of that is, when we're talking about nature, it helps with the mindfulness, but nature actually has a lot. Like there are people in Japan that go forest bathing, because research shows that
go what?
It's called forest bathing, just going into forests, because nature naturally reduces, I don't know what chemicals it is, or not chemicals, but like what it is about nature, but nature naturally will reduce our cortisol levels.
Yeah.
Right? And cortisol, like we said before, is a killer. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so much more of that we need to be getting more into, and practice. Like you said earlier, it's not like you're eliminating something else. In other words, you're not eliminating medicine. But what you also find in that a lot of things, like what you're talking about now, the body actually has its own medicine, that its own healing abilities, and with nature. So holistic. That's the thing we really gotta get across. I want to get on this because I have something. You talked about being an advocate, be into advocacy in your next mission. As far as advocacy goes. So I want to start that little conversation off here with her. Let me see how we're doing on questions. Oh, we're okay. Okay, good. So Jennifer here, how can schools better support students with emotional challenges? Now, over the last So yeah, great one here. But I also want to kind of just throw something at you a little bit. I've been really kind of thinking about a lot. It's a little more spread and a little takes a little bit more energy maybe to do. But anyway, we'll get to that maybe. What do you think about this? How do you
Oh,
respond here
oh,
to
this is
Jennifer?
a loaded question, right? And it really depends on where in the world you are, and it really depends on
That's the
the
first,
amount of
absolutely.
resources, but it takes resources, right? So we need to have people who are trained to deal with, for example, people with mental health challenges, neurodiverse people, kids that have autism or whatever the challenges might be. We need people who are trained. We need people there. We don't even have enough resources often. We don't even have enough people often, which is why
Our
my kid
school
wasn't in
systems
school
suck.
for, right? Yeah, well, everywhere. They suck everywhere. Sorry.
Yeah,
Oops, did I say that as a teacher?
yeah.
um,
Not the teachers. The system though really does suck.
yeah. And then the other piece would be I really feel like we need to integrate teaching social and emotional learning. And I actually have created a social and emotional learning online course for young adolescents as well, especially neurodiverse kids, because I believe so strongly in this. Social and emotional learning needs to be integrated into the curriculum. What good is it if a kid can, yes, I mean, I'm not saying intelligence is,
Oh my God.
bad. Like you, of course, you need to learn to read and write and math and all that kind of stuff. But you could be the
How many
most.
years did you teach? How long did you teach? Was your
I've been teaching 25 years and now I'm teaching part time.
okay? So you were and are a full teacher for
I was a
25
full
years.
time teacher and recently I decided to go
Yeah,
part time and then do
yeah,
this.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
But
I'm
what
going to tell
good?
you what I'm going to tell you after you're
Yeah.
done
Yeah,
because
sure. What good is this kind of intelligence if
Mhm,
these kids
mhm,
go out into the world throws extreme challenges or just even regular challenges and they can't cope. And then they're
mhm,
depressed and then they're not
mhm.
happy. We need to teach them the skills and the strategies so that they can go out there and function with all the stuff that the world is throwing at them. I mean,
Yeah,
the rates of depression, the rates of, suicide, everything. I mean, it's astounding. This shouldn't be happening, right? So I am a big
mhm.
believer in bringing social and emotional learning, which is the emotional intelligence piece. And this is something I've learned in my journey is that emotional intelligence is just as important as intelligence. Why are we
Abs-
neglecting it? Why?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, 100%. So I think Europe has a better school system than we do here in the United States, and
Depends
I
on
think
where. Yeah.
yeah, but
Yeah.
I mean, there's different things that they do where they're guiding people, towards this or that,
Hmm.
athletics or
Hmm.
whatever.
Hmm.
That's a better concept than what we do, which is just kind of teach people to be workers.
Hmm.
And then you have the other group that does something different. But um, I this this is about the great middle class. This show
Right.
and you talked about earlier. It's about diverse topics, because there's a lot of needs within the
Hmm.
great middle class, which is made up of a lot of different people. I mean, we're both in that workers class,
Hmm.
different calls it
Hmm.
different names, right?
Yeah.
So there's all sorts of different backgrounds, melanin. There's all sorts of different religious. There's all sorts of those different things
Hmm.
going on.
Right.
Responders, doctors, teachers, podcasters, authors. You know, the whole group is there. So
Hmm.
there's a lot of different needs, but it all comes back to the same basic thing. If you live in a neighborhood, I don't care what color, race, whatever, down the houses, if you're a family, got a couple of kids, you got the same needs,
Hmm.
and that's what the middle class is and what
Right.
needs to be and come together. That's why we're here.
Right.
Um, been really thinking a lot about, because there's AIs coming and we got to get this stuff together quick. Otherwise, the world's going to be changing dramatically. And unless we've got a handle on certain things, then we're going to be left behind,
Yeah.
or we're going to flourish with it.
Right.
There's a, are we going to just survive, get left behind, or are we going to flourish?
Right.
So we do a lot of things in that. We do teach AI, we do this, we do that. Recently, this started as an idea of a watch party, get people together, talk about different issues or political items in coming elections. And no matter what side of you're on politically, most people are in the middle. All the extremists have all the talk, they'll have and we don't. So now coming together kind of changes that narrative, or has the power to change it.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the things that are going on is kind of an evolution, and this current administration, like them or not, whatever, it's a different show. But the potential of what's happening, our country alone spends $35.7 trillion a year. And you and I both know there's a lot of waste. There's a lot of corruption.
Right.
There's a lot of other stuff. I mean, they seem, teaching, just ridiculous programs that are pork. So, and at the same time, our school system's being restructured. You know that, right? Because actually, our school system right now is illegal against our Constitution, believe it or not. There's no allowance. Huh?
I believe it.
Yeah. There's no allowance between the government and the educational system. And technically, that's not happening right now.
Right.
So that's all being torn apart. So here's my thought. After all that probably made us politically each kind of nervous and wait, where's he going to go in this? Hold on. And that's nothing to do with what I'm going to talk about. Because first of all, if we did, it's not about beliefs. It's about the people who we hire to do our bidding for those beliefs. That's why we have a democratic republic, not a democracy. Otherwise, California and New York could run everything in the country forever. So we put people in there for the different needs. But right now, they're not doing that. So that's where that conversation would go, if that was a conversation we're going to have. And I don't care which way you lean, you can't argue with that, I would imagine. So what we're going to talk about here is combining what you're talking about with the counselors. You talked about needing resources that we don't have already enough to do what is being done now, which is crap. What are we, number 40th in the world on education?
Yeah, I believe that Canada is actually up here. Yeah, I just looked
number one.
Statistics.
Yeah. So we're 40th, and we spend the most on anybody of any country on a student. So right there's something wrong, obviously. So what I'm thinking is taking what you're saying, and in the educational system, whatever it is, you have your classes. Like you said, you've got to learn math, you've got to learn English, or whatever language, you've got to learn science. You've got to have smarts, but you also have to have mental intelligence.
Absolutely.
Or mental intelligence and emotional intelligence. So I'm glad you said what you said, because it builds up. I'm now building on exactly what you've said already. And then you talked about there should be a course in school that you learn this mental health. And I just add to that we need in our system, there's a lot of people in this world that could be doing better. And let's not just talk about mental health here. Let's talk about just our citizens of their country. There's a lot of people that are not achieving what they could for multiple reasons. One reason, maybe they don't know they could. They don't know they have the chance. They don't know that exists. They don't know that's possible. Because let's face it, whatever the brain can conceive, it can achieve,
Right.
but you got to conceive it, you got to believe it.
Mm-hmm.
So my thinking is, and this is going to save in the long run, and then it also needs to be for adults. Every citizen of their country or their system, as part of the school system, needs to be evaluated. And yes, it's going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to take resources. Those counselors that you talk about, there's got to be, instead of a couple at a school, there's got to be a team. And literally every student goes through, and as they're learning, as one of their classes, what are there, 35, hopefully more like 18 students in a class per teacher,
Right.
whatever those numbers are, one of those classes is this, and they use AI automation. We'll get to that in a second, but they literally talk to that student, and it becomes and the counselor right now, what do they see them towards the end of their junior year to get ready for maybe college? Other than that, there's not a lot, unless there's an extreme situation. This needs to be a thing. And that their task is to, by the time they get through a certain grade, I don't know what that is yet, but they are starting on a path, knowing, because we can tell what that personality is going to want to be able to do, what that personality is going to make the most of themselves with that, and literally design the perfect child, help develop the perfect child. Start with what you're talking about from the beginning and on, and then bring in, and then have community centers set up in the towns where parents, adults come in, and they start from now doing the same thing. A lot of money's going to be invested here, but you also will have a much better society, country, and it's going to take a generation-ish or so. I mean, our school system's already teaching stuff to our system, teaching stuff to indoctrinate kids into certain things.
Right.
And here you're building a human, but you got to also teach the adults, because that's family. You could really get working fixing this kid, and then they go home and get all fucked up again. The point, no, that I'm joking there, but the point is, there's so much money we spend out there.
Yeah.
There's so much waste. The school system's being new. I need a partner. I'm moving to Oklahoma, so I'm already thinking I can start with small government people and push this idea. At some point, it's got to get to a Trump. What's your president's name now? Or whatever you call your person. I know you just had an election. The newer guy is more like Trump kind of guy, right? Isn't he?
Yeah. I'm blinking right now.
You're blinking?
Yeah. Our prime minister.
Oh, on his name? It doesn't matter. Whoever
Carney, sorry. Yeah.
Carney, yeah. Conservative Party or whatever. But, this is a system. Okay. Our founders, I'm taking over a little bit of your show here. Sorry.
That's okay.
Our founders created documents that would make our government of the people, for the people, by the people. It's not exactly happening that way right now. And really hasn't totally been. However, we still have a link, because they're still scared of us. That's why we're a little bit better than Europe, potential better. And technically you guys, because we've got a little bit more freedom. We also would have a hell of a lot more freedom if we actually did what the founders said and vote people in and out. Come from the farms, come from the teachers. I got to point up here. This is what sucks about the setup. I have to look up here, but I can't see you. But if I look and see you, then look at where I'm. That's the different look. So I've got to play that game of going back and forth. But I believe. Well, first of all, do you think I'm nuts, or has anything I said sounded like? Okay.
No, I mean, it's it's just a loaded.
It's huge.
Yeah.
And I only broad brushed it. I mean, my God, it's huge.
Yeah, exactly.
We would have armies of social workers, good ones. They'd have to be good ones and dedicated. Their whole job is to make whoever that person is, and they can't have a workload of 10,000 or 1,000, like these other programs. But we have the resources. This is our money in Canada. That's your money there. It's our money.
Right.
But you know why it's run the way it is? We're not following our founders. The people in both of all governments, but I'm going to talk about mine. I'm biased, but you get the idea. You get the idea. We should be getting these some bitches out. We should be talking about it and going, now, wait a minute. Last year, he or she said that. Wait a minute. Last year, they voted on a bill like that. And if you have 20 people in a room, you're going to actually, and from both sides, because we're going into a room saying, I want to learn. I don't want to teach you anything. Because if I teach you something, I may give you some information. That's one. If I learn something from you, I've gained something than what I just quote unquote told you. So I listen twice as much as I talk, except for right now. Right now I'm talking 10,000 times more than I'm doing, even breathing more than I'm breathing. So that whole thing is really, I think that's where we need to get back on track as a country, and by extension the world. I mean, you got to admit that we're kind of still that thing out there that people go, what are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
What are they doing?
Mm-hmm.
And there's an effect to that. And hopefully we can get back to, okay, the founder said this. We get this little watch party thing going. This show's growing, and it's growing, I pray to God, because people are starting to call it a movement, which normally is scary. But in this case, it's a movement of people coming together. You see it on social media. You ever see the ones that, hey, white people, we just want to get to know you. We like you. You know, that there's kind of that little bit of shift of people wanting to come together. Now we're giving them an alley. We're lighting along their journey here, because that's where we need to be. And that's what you're talking about. You're talking about healing people. We have people on here talking about healing people. And that's one of the huge big things. We also talk about having people learn finance, and all these things that are coming to people usually are readily available to the elite. We're making all this readily available to the great middle class, right, because of, the future, the this, the that. Now we start this program. That leads into that founding fathers who said, make your country of the people, for the people, by the people. And he said that, they said that because they believe that every major decision or action that comes out of these United States, they're united. You ever been to parts of our country? It's not like you're east and west. It's like each state is, the people are different. I'm moving to Arkansas, totally different. Small town, population 5,500 people, biggest town for 100 miles around them. That's where I'm moving, right? And I came from Chicago, lived in LA. You all know about New York, on and on and on. So that's the beauty of what we have here, because we can bring all that experience together, pick the right people to put in place, get all the, as Trump said before, the swamp out. And that's red or blue. That's both sides. All right, I'm done talking.
Yeah. Political science is not my forte. And so,
no, I know.
Yeah,
but it's not about political science. It's about, we need leaders. We got to have them. That's
absolutely.
We got to have the right ones, though.
Yeah.
What about that program, though? What do you think?
Oh, yeah, that sounds good to me. It's just like I said, it's so layered. It would be so intricate, right? I mean, it just feels so daunting and huge to be
That's
able
why
to.
You need politicians. It's something that's got to be, you're right, put together and as a presentation, and then accepted by some, because it's got to be like a program,
right?
All right, politicians, make a program that this is it. Get it. That's where it's got to get to.
There is social and emotional learning if we're focusing on building emotional intelligence in humans, right? And again, that's research and evidence-based programs. So, if there's one thing that people could do, it's simply to introduce more of those programs into school.
You
Right?
need to, man. And the thing is, what do you think about that as far as the reality of that moving forward and the way things are headed? You
I
know,
I
there's a
don't know.
change going on, but is that going to be a good change or a bad change?
I think it would be a good change. It's just matter of getting the right people actually involved. And I don't know how much faith I have in politicians executing some of these things, unless, again, going back to the advocating piece, right? I mean, we have to be fierce advocates for some of these changes that we're talking about. Yeah.
All right. Well, so I didn't look close enough, but I saw your text. I thought that was some more information, and I clipped it over. So, okay, it's time. It's that time. We still got almost 300 people online here.
Oh, wow.
And yeah.
Well, I'm
No,
glad
I
you
mean,
didn't tell me that beforehand, because then I would have just gotten nervous.
Oh
I
my
actually
God!
blanked on our prime minister's name, like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that, because it was Trudeau for so long.
Exactly. Yeah, I know.
Bloody hell!
Bloody hell!
While I'm live, they're gonna be like, "Who's this idiot?" I'm learning from her.
You have a huge fan base here. You have a following. You can share my subscribers here or my contacts here, but please leave some for me, please. You got a whole bunch of people here that are just in love with you. How'd you like to wrap it up and give a wave? Stay in the green room for a second if you would.
Absolutely.
Actually, I'm not even going to have that. I'm not even going to have that damn following thing. So hang out there for a second, and I'll meet you there back in a second.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so much fun. Thank you. Appreciate it.
It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I'll see you back there. Give them all a wave.
Bye, everyone.
She is funny. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to have that outro video this time. I don't think we missed anybody. Let me see if we did. Daily practice sound good. Yeah, so we got it all going here. Appreciate you guys showing up. It was a kind of a little weird of a day. I think it was kind of quirky, wasn't it? I mean, the show itself today, I'm just kind of out of it a little bit because now they're all diving off. Look at them, Michelle. They're diving off now that you left. They're like, oh fuck, we hear him all the time. That's about it, folks. I'm just going to remind you to subscribe. Come on, get onto our show, Insights in Straight Talk. We're here on LinkedIn. Well, we're on LinkedIn. We're on Facebook. We're on here on YouTube at that sign RODDDUFF 1939. And I am your host, Rod Duff, and I'm out.